Hi there. Today I'm going to be showing you how I will be recording voices for in-game characters, and then I will be processing those voices to get rid of any unwanted sound, and then I will be modifying those voices to get them to sound like they're coming from the characters that are in the game. Today I'm going to be recording using this Zoom Field microphone recorder. It's actually one of the better ones that you can find on the market. This particular model comes with a microphone, a dual stereo microphone setup, although you can buy additional microphones. I also have a shotgun microphone that goes on this, which comes with its own windscreen. And then these microphones, the gain on them is controlled by this little dial up here. And down here is the display that you can see, a little mixing board that allows you to monitor the recording. This particular model also has 4 microphone inputs, both balanced and unbalanced, so you can record in almost any setting. And it's pretty handy. I really like it. It's one of my favorite pieces of equipment in the studio. So we'll be using this for voice recording today. Now, before we go over into my home poor man's recording studio, I'm going to show you a scene in the game that we're going to be using for these voices that I'll be recording. Today I'm using Unity, and we're using Unity Framework to make SpaceVenture. And in this particular scene that we are seeing today, we are looking at a place called Taco Nova. It's a fast food joint in space, and it's brightly colored, as you can see here, along with all the decorations that you would expect in a fast food joint. Here we are with the 3 habaneros on a stick with sombreros, and part of the puzzle is that Ace has to go to the table and place an order, and that's part of the puzzle. I'm not going to tell you the complete solution to the puzzle today. I'm just going to show you just enough to demonstrate how we're going to be putting the voices into the game that I'm going to be recording during this behind-the-scenes look. So here is Ace, and he is about to walk up to the table, but in through this little entry portal over here on the left are about 15 StarTourists, small little guys, kind of reminiscent of Cousin It from Addams Family, and also reminiscent of Minions from Despicable Me and the Claw Aliens from Toy Story. And also there's a little bit of Ewok influence in there as well. So as I walk over here to try to get to the front of the line like I had intended to do, the StarTourists, they won't let him get in line. They stay in line, they resist him, but they move out of his way to let him pass. And then they jump right back in line without allowing Ace to move to the front of the line. So that's pretty much all I want to show you today. And as I go into my homebrew recording studio, you'll see that it is in the best place possible in any home setting that you can imagine. It is in the closet, where we have a lot of hanging clothes, and clothes make an excellent noise absorber, as well as providing a little bit of privacy so that I can record these without any interruption. So I'll take my Zoom microphone set up into my homebrew closet recording studio, and we will get these voices recorded. Now, the voices that I'm recording also will be using this little printout here, this script that has a few lines that are in kind of an alien StarTourist language. So not much of this will be English. If anything, we'll probably say yum and Taco Nova. That'll probably be the only words that you recognize from this. So with that all said, off to the recording studio in my closet. Okay, here we are in my home recording studio, my walk-in closet. Now the audio that you're hearing is now being recorded on my iPhone, so it's a little lower quality than other parts of this video, but I just want to show you the process that we will be using for the recording session today. There's minimal amount of reflection in here, although this door that it's just out of frame, does have a little bit of reflection on it, so I'm going to be recording into some of the clothing here so that I can record as muffled of a reflection as I possibly can. I've got the Zoom microphone turned on, my headset's plugged in, and here's my script. Here it is right there. And now I'm going to be recording. I'm only going to demonstrate, a little bit of this. I'm not going to bore you with recording everything that's on this page, but I just want to give you a feel for what is going on with the recording session. So here we are, we're recording, and here we go. Okay, so now with the recording out of the way, I have copied the files from the SD card that was in my Zoom microphone, and I have copied them to a location on my hard drive. And I'm going to be using today a program called Adobe Audition. It comes with the Adobe Creative Suite, and the reason I like to use it is because it was free with the Adobe Creative Collection Suite, and it's pretty much just as good as almost any other prosumer software. I've used SoundForge, I have used Pro Tools, I've used Audacity, and a lot of the sound effects that I created for SpaceVenture were done initially in Audacity until I bought the big boy package for the Creative Suite software for Adobe. This is pretty darn good, and I think this is it's more precise and better at editing and also noise reduction. So what I've done here is I've loaded up the file that I recorded in my closet into Adobe Audition, and I think what I want to do here is show you that there's some noise going on. So first of all, here's the raw recording.
Achoo! 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 Achoo!
Now you can't see it, you can't hear it very much, but there is a certain amount of noise that was recorded when I created the initial recording session, and you can barely hear it. But what's in there is some room noise. Believe it or not, there is some noise that comes from the air conditioner. There is noise from this time of year where I live. The cicadas are awfully noisy, so I could hear them through my headset with the Zoom microphone. It's barely audible on this track, but I want to make sure that I get rid of as much room noise and bleeding noise from other parts of the house in this recording. So the first thing I'll do is go up to Effects and choose Noise Reduction and Capture Noise Print. And now that I'm happy that I've captured a representative sample of the noise that is in that room, I'm going to select All and go back up to Effects and use the noise reduction process. And this shows me the noise profile that was in the room. Not a whole lot, but enough that someone who is a sound designer would want to reduce as much as possible. And in fact, all right, so I'm going to apply. And though it's not immediately apparent visually, it has taken care of the room noise that that I wanted to eliminate from the recording. Now, this recording that I'm doing today, I've also applied some noise reduction because I've got my computer running. I've got a couple of external hard drives running. The air conditioning from up there is blowing in. So I have also applied noise reduction techniques to this particular audio track that you're now listening to. There is a little bit of artifacting, but nothing that I think most people will notice. All right, so getting back to Adobe Audition, I've now applied the noise reduction pass to the session, and
Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray.
So those are the lines in the language of the StarTourists. And what I want to do next is to process these or to modify these in such a way that we get a sound effect that looks very much like the characters that are in the scene here that you saw earlier in this video. I've chosen to make them sound like minions, and I've looked over a few websites that show how to do this, how to change the characteristics of the sound so they sound like minions or those Hook aliens from Toy Story. And here's how we do it. So now we're back in Audition. We choose Effects, and we choose Time and Pitch. And now we want Stretch and Pitch Process. And this brings up the interface for adjusting the pitch. I'm not going to change the time. Back in the old days, when we wanted to stretch out we wanted to change the pitch of a certain sound, we actually had to change the playback speed as well. But now with modern technology, we don't have to do that. So the setting that I'm going to be using today is I'm going to keep the actual time length of the recording the same, but I'm going to change the pitch so that we are up by 6 semitones. And let's hear what that sounds like.
Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray.
Okay, I think it's pretty good. I think I'm going to go just a tad bit lower. I'm going to go 5.5 semitones. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what a semitone is, if you look at a piano keyboard, a semitone is the interval between one note and the next note up. So if you're looking at a keyboard and you see middle C, then the next key that is adjacent to the middle C is C sharp. Well, that's one semitone. And so imagine that we're playing in the key of C. 5 semitones is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is F. And F 5.5 is just somewhere between F and F sharp. That'll give you an idea from a musician's point of view of what a semitone is, but in audio processing, that's kind of how we think about it. So now I'm going to go ahead and apply this 5.5 semitones. Let's just hear it back one more time.
Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray.
Okay, that pretty much is what where I want to be with the sound voice characteristic for these characters. I'm going to go ahead and click Apply, and the resulting effect is I've applied it to the entire recording, and the reason the options were I could have, again, kept the entire recording and applied all of the noise reduction and all of the modifications, pitch modifications to the entire file, or I could have broken them up into individual files and then processed them one by one. I didn't want to do that, and most editors who process audio dialogue for film and games will process the entire recording session with the same settings. So that's what I've done here, in Audition is I've processed the entire set.
Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray.
Now also I added just a little bit of compression on the speed so that it is operating at about 80% or 20% faster than normal human speech. And that way it's a little more animated, and I think it fits the small little characters who are saying the lines. So I've applied that to this session.
Winnebago, ooh, gamma ray. Cafwango, katane. Cafwango, katane.
Okay, so that's the modifications to the voices. And now the next step would be, and I'm not going to go through every one of these in this behind the scenes video, but I would chop out each of these and save them as an individual file. So here we go. Here's an example. I would save this one, and I would export, and I would save this particular clip as its own recording. And I've done that through the magic of video and behind-the-scenes updates. I've already processed each of these into their individual files and have prepared them for importation into the game. So that's the recording. That's the scene that I'm going to be inserting the sound effects, the sound voices into. And now you've seen me process them and reduce the noise. And now we're going to plug them into the game. Here are all the files that I have clipped out of Audition, and I have named them according to the word that's spoken. But in professional game development, and I'm sure this is the case in movie audio development, is that they like to have a naming convention that's applied to all of the files that will be used for a particular scene or for a particular character or a combination of both. It would be a lot of work to go through and basically rename each and every one of these. There are, let's see how many we've got here. We've got, start at the bottom, go to the top. We've got a total of 89 individual files. And I'm just not in the mood to rename each of these individually. So for the Mac, I have this handy tool called a Better Finder Rename, and does a great job of helping me name files in a consistent way. And all I got to do is drag them over here. And what I want to do for the naming of these is to add something to the beginning of it so that it tells me just by looking at it the context of how this file will be used in the game. So what I like to do is have the name of the character. So in this case, it's StarTourist _ and then where they're going to be, and in this case, it's Taco Nova. And let's see, what else? StarTourist, Taco Nova, and then the phrase. I think maybe I'll add standing in line. So as you can see here, I started with the macro. It's the StarTourist, and then where they're located in Taco Nova. And then where in Taco Nova are they? They're standing in line. So these 89 files will be used by the characters when they're standing in line. So I'm pretty happy with the way this looks, although I want to add one more underscore to separate the naming convention from the actual content, which is the last part of this file name here. In this case, the character saying Taco Nova, and over here, this character would be saying yo, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and perform the renames, and it'll ask me, do I want to rename them all? I say yes, and it is done. So we'll go back to the folder where I pulled these from. assuming I can find it. And here they are in the file folder where I had exported them from Adobe Audition. Now, at this point, they are ready to put into Unity. All right, so here's Unity, and I have created, this is the, if you're not familiar with the interface for Unity, this is the in-game scene here. This is the scene where I can select specific objects in the game and tag them if I need to, or do other things to them. In this column, I have all of the items that are in the scene. In the next column over under Project, these are all of the contents of the project folder, or the game itself, the entire project. And then when I select a specific item, the inspector column shows me details that are related to that item. So under the project, I have an audio folder, which shows all my sound effects, and they're separated out by location in the game, and by location, also by which scene. That's how I have this organized. And so for voiceover, this will be the first time that I have voice in the game, and I have a folder for StarTourists. So let me bring up the Finder, and I'm going to drag all of these files over into the project. And these are all, let me just show you the details of these files. These are WAV files. I have saved them out as stereo, 44.1 megahertz, 16 bits per sample. And the reason I did this is because, in my opinion, it's best to save at a fairly high resolution. This is CD audio quality. These days, a lot of movies and games are using higher quality audio, such as 46 megahertz or 96 megahertz, or even higher. And because people are getting better and better equipment at home, and we want to be able to allow people to use the audio equipment that they have at home to the greatest fidelity possible. But in this case, 44.1 is pretty darn good, and each of these files are that quality. Now, for those of you who are game developers, you're going to be telling me, well, Ken, 44.1 is nice, but 86 files that are 44.1, 16-bit, that seems like an awful lot of audio files to cram into memory. So there we go. They're loading into the game. And I'm going to do, the thing I'm going to do next is show you how Unity lets you set compression on each file so that, number one, it's not sucking up system memory, and instead it will be streaming it from the storage device. So as you can see here, all of the files have been loaded into the game. This little red plus means that I have not yet added it to the master project. These are still just local files. And on SpaceVenture, we're using Perforce, and Perforce has an interface that works with Unity, and when I submit these files into the master project, which is on a server over elsewhere, it's not locally to me, it's managed by someone else on the team. These will be uploaded to the server, to the file server for the game, and then everyone who works on the game, who comes in and does a get latest on the files, they will receive all of the audio files that I am about to upload to the server. So now you can see that each of the files that I renamed have now been placed into the game. And here is what I was talking about earlier, how you ensure that you're not going to be loading each of these sound files into memory. That's the default. So Unity has, when I select on an audio file, and let's just allow this to finish here before we continue. So when I add an audio file to Unity, it has a couple of defaults depending on the platform, the target platform that this game will be compiled for. In this case, we are compiling the game for PC and Mac, and Unity, the makers of Unity know that when people play a game on the PC and Mac, they typically have a hard drive, and all the files are stored on the hard drive. So instead of storing these files in memory, which is the default here, as you can see on this file, the load type is, well, it's stored in memory, and it's a 3D file, and the file format is a WAV file. Well, I don't want to store this in memory. I want to store it on the hard drive and have it stream from disk as the game triggers the sound. And because hard drives on PCs and Macs are pretty fast, and these sounds are not critical to be synchronized properly, these can be streamed from the hard drive. So I've chosen to stream it from the disk, and because of that, I don't really need to compress it anymore. It will play in its full 44.1 megahertz fidelity, 16-bit fidelity, but I could choose to have it compressed in when it does load into memory, and there would be a little bit of lossiness if I did compress it, but I'm not going to play these back compressed. I'm going to go back to having the native WAV file format. You also see here that there is an option to select whether this is a 3D sound or not, and this 3D sound means that it can be placed in the audio field left or right, forward or backward, depending on its position relative to the camera. So looking at the scene down here in the lower left corner, if I was to attach a sound to this soda fountain, for example, because the camera is basically center, you would hear the sound slightly to the left when sound from the dispenser is played. And the same thing over here with the video game machine, that if I was to hear any sound effects coming from there, because it would be a 3D sound, as checked off over here, when you would hear sounds coming from the video game, it would it would have the apparent position in the sound field as being slightly to the right. And so that's what it means to be 3D sound. Now, when you want interface sounds, like when I right-click and select which action icon to use, that would not be a 3D sound. That would play from the position of the camera, and it would always sound in the center of the audio field. But in this case, I do want the StarTourists to sound like they are coming in from left to right, and so I will be using the 3D sound. Now I'm going to pause the video at this point, and I'm going to select those values for each of the 86 sounds that I just loaded into Unity. Okay, so I've actually had the video on pause for quite a while because I had a lot of lead-up time to set up this final bit. But let me kind of give you a summary of what I've done. For SpaceVenture, we use a package called Master Audio. It's a middleware piece of software that allows us to assign sounds to certain events, or to button presses, or to footsteps, things like that. It's a pretty good middleware, audio management middleware software. It's a little less powerful than WWise, which I've used before. And it's got a few limitations that I would like to see expanded in the future. But let me just kind of give you the rundown of what we're doing here. In Master Audio, I've grabbed groups of sounds. Like, for example, let's say this group of sounds right here. These are the characters in the game. They're saying the name of the restaurant. So here you have it.
Taco Nova. Taco Nova. Taco Nova. Taco Nova. Taco Nova.
Okay, so the goal here is to have a bank of sounds or a group of sounds that the game can draw from randomly. So just imagine a bucket of sounds, and the game says, oh, I need a sound from this bucket. I'll just pick one at random, and it pulls it out, and it assigns it to a character when a certain event happens. Now, in this case, it's the characters saying the name of the restaurant. So over here in the group for the Taco Nova sounds, I have it set up so that the master volume of any of the sounds that are assigned to this group are about 0.4. 1.0 is 100%, so I want them to play at a lower volume than what they were recorded. And I can adjust the entire group of sounds with just that one setting. And then I've gone through and set it up so that each of the sounds that are in the group, they will definitely get played. This voices weight means that 100% of the time this sound will get played. Otherwise, if I don't do that, it'll get cut off by other sounds or other events. And I want to make sure that we have a group of voices playing so that it sounds like 15 different characters have popped in and are all kind of on the same wavelength and are saying the same thing. So each of these sounds within the group have 100% certainty being played. And then also here, this section, I want the sounds to be played kind of at a random pitch within a very narrow band here. So the pitch, if you alter a pitch by 0, that means it stays the original. But in this case, I've told it to alter it by 5/100ths in either direction, so that when it plays, a random number will be generated. That number will determine where within that 10/100ths range that the sound will be played. And that way, it adds a little more organic feeling to the randomness of the sounds being played. So I've done that for all of these sounds. Okay. And then going back over here to the hierarchy of the scene. So this is master audio. I'm going to collapse that now. And I want to show you each of the StarTourists in this game. There are 18 different of them, but in this particular sequence, they're only going to be using 16. So what I've had to do, and this is why it's taken so long and why the lighting is different because now it's nighttime, is in each of the characters that we saw previously, there's going to be a series of sounds playing that's triggered when the character first is enabled in the game. And here's how that works. Over here in this corner is the entrance portal for when they come up into the restaurant. And I imagine that being a lot like George Jetson when George gets around in the little pneumatic tubes, or in Futurama. And when he comes out, there's a little thunk sound. So I went into my sound library and I put together a little bit of a thunk sound using both a vacuum cleaner suction, when you remove your, when you have it open and then you put your hand on it and you get a suk kind of a sound. And then the other one is the sound of a suction cup that is being pulled away. Now I won't play them separately because I don't have this particular application set up to record for this, but I will play the combined sound here in Unity right now. So going up here, these are the voices. We're going to go over to the sound effects and then go over to Taco Nova. And then here's the combined sound that you will hear in the game. So you can kind of hear the vacuum cleaner suction along with a large suction cup being pulled away. I've also changed the pitch on both of them, and I've altered the what they call the sound envelope or the amplitude envelope, the ADSR, so that this has a very unique sound. Here it is again. Okay, so that sound will play whenever a star tourist appears coming up through the portal and into the game. So the next sound that I want played is the sound of the character making a noise as he or she appears. So I've imagined that these characters do say what they do. So as they appear into a scene, they'll say boink, 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 boink. So the sound I have for that, and I've got 8 different sounds, lines that I've recorded, 8 different variations of that I've recorded for these characters. And let me just give you a feel for the variety that I've got here. So we've got this.
Boink.
And here's another.
Boink, boink.
And another.
Boink.
And you get the idea.
Boink.
They announced their arrival by saying boink. All right. The next in the sequence of sounds that I want to play is the sound of them anticipating the food that they're going to order at Taco Nova. And in this case, they're saying, just like everyone else in the universe says when they are anticipating really good food. And so those sounds like this.
Oh. Ah.
Okay, so you get the idea that we've got a variety of different sounds, so when they're all played together in a group, this sounds like a different group of characters. The last sound that I want to play is each of the characters saying the name of the restaurant, Taco Nova. And here's the way I have it set up. So when the character is first enabled in Unity, and in Unity, when you want an object in the game to become part of the scene that's usable, you give it the command to enable. So in this case, whenever the tourist number 1 becomes enabled, then this sequence of sounds, you can see right here, enable. I'm using the Master Audio plugin, and I've got it set up to play a sound when it becomes enabled. And after it becomes enabled, I can tell it which sound to play. And I'll walk through that here real quickly. So immediately it'll play the suction sound. Then it'll play the boink after a quarter of a second. And then it will play the sound after 1 full second. And then it'll say Taco Nova after 2 seconds. And let me show you how I do that in Unity using Master Audio. So I click on Add a Component. I click on the game object that's in the scene. This is the 16th tourist that's in the game. I click on Add Component, and I choose the package that's for this purpose by Dark Tonic, Master Audio, and giving you all the different parameters that go along with using Dark Tonic is way beyond the scope of this update. But I just want to give you kind of a little bit of insight into the sausage factory for hooking all these sounds up. So in this case, I have these 4 options. I'm going to choose event sounds. And an event is simply something that takes place in the game that may have a tag attached to it. And in this case, I'm telling it to look for an event for when the character is enabled. And when the character is enabled, I'll just make the name of this particular action appear. And we will play the sound of the suction sound, this one here. And I don't want to delay it. I want to play it at full volume. But I'm playing it at full volume for the channel. The whole channel has been turned down to 0.4, and so this particular sound will play at 100% of 0.4. So that's important to keep in mind as you're working with these middleware audio tools. I also want to add the sound of the character announcing their arrival, and that would be here, let me just change the name of this. This is Suction, and this is Arrival. And I've told it to play a sound, and in this case I want to play the sound of Boink, which is this one. And again, it's playing at full volume, but this time I want to delay the playback of the sound by 1/4 of a second, so that is not played at the same time as the previous sound. So what we're doing here is we're creating a sequence of sounds that are played in a certain order and after a certain time. Just like you would in music, you would have notes at various points throughout the bar of a piece of music. All right, the next thing I want to add is, oops, let's get rid of this one here. I want to add the sound of the character saying and this is going to play the sound, and will play after a full second. And then finally, I want the character to say the name of the restaurant, but I want it to wait a full second before I have it play there. Full 2 seconds. Okay, so let's save. And I will expand the scene. So what triggers the characters to enter the scene, the little space tourists? Well, over here in this part of the scene, we have an invisible object that when Ace collides with it, it triggers the entry of the space tourists. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's simply a little rectangular volume right there, so that when the player causes Ace to walk toward the counter to order food, Ace will collide with this 3D object, and in the game we have it set up so that when Ace collides with that, it triggers the appearance of the space tourists, or the star tourists. All right, so here we go. We're going to bring in the full scene.